The two most important days of your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. Mark Twain. DC Tribe, Josh Thomas, super glad to have you here. Hey, if you really enjoy this podcast, you should follow and subscribe on Apple or Spotify. You know that by now. If this is your first podcast episode of the Do Zone, welcome. Glad to have you. If it is your 110th or whatever episode that we're on, awesome. I'm sure you're tired of hearing the same things over and over, but hey, if you have not subscribed to my podcast yet, shame on you. Got to get on that, man. We're in the Do Zone. It's time to do stuff. Get in there and do it. By the way, this podcast is brought to you by Unbreakable Teams. We use a science-backed process to triple your company's productivity without additional costs so you can buy back your time. If you want to learn how we can help you dominate the next 12 months, head over to unbreakableteams.com. Once again, that's unbreakableteams.com. Let's find out what we're fighting for today. Or what are we fighting against? And that's really the question that I want to ask you. Are you fighting for something or are you fighting against something? And I really want to dive deep on this question because it matters which direction you're going. Now, I'm no fitness expert by any means, but I have gone to the gym 5 days a week for the last 6 months, so I kind of know a couple of things, I guess. And one thing that I have learned is that when you are pushing, you are using a different set of muscles than when you are pulling. Now, maybe you're kind of combining those muscles in some way or another in some parts of the exercise. But for the most part, when you're pulling, you're using one set of muscles. When you're pushing, you're using another set of muscles. And your body is working differently when you are pushing towards or pulling against. And that same thing happens when you're fighting for something or you're fighting against something. If you can kind of visualize it in a movie, when people are fighting for something, they're moving forward, they're pushing, they're on the offense, they're being aggressive, they're going after the thing that they want. But when they're fighting against something, they're being pushed back. They're on the defensive. They're retreating. They're trying to stand their ground, but something's coming against them. And the offense is coming from the other direction. Which side do you want to be on? Do you want to be fighting for something, or do you want to be fighting against it? And there are so many times in our life where we choose to fight against things. Something's not going your way. I'm going to fight it. Are you really fighting for your positioning, or are you fighting against somebody else's positioning in that situation? I want you to think about if you're in sales and you're on a sales call and you're having a conversation with somebody and they don't really want to buy from you. Are you fighting for that sale, or are you fighting against the loss of that sale? Because the time to fight for the sale is probably before you feel like you're fighting. The time to fight against it is when you're reacting, you're back on your heels, they beat you, and you're trying to not lose. We want to fight for things, because fighting for things is us trying to win. Fighting against things is us trying to not lose. How many other situations in business have you been where you're running a business that probably is not very successful? It's not very profitable. Doesn't look like things are going to work very well. But you're fighting against closing the doors. Not a great position to be in. How many times have you been in a situation where you're trying to get something off the ground and it hasn't gotten off the ground, but you believe that it's going to work, and so you're fighting for it. You show up every day and you're like, no, you know what? I'm going to pick this up and I'm going to move it forward a couple more steps because that's what I'm doing. I'm fighting for this thing to be successful. Isn't that a lot more fulfilling? Doesn't that have a better chance than fighting against something that's trying to crush you one step at a time? Doesn't it feel a little bit better to be the one pushing instead of the one being pushed against? I want you to really think about every single instance in your life where you are feeling pressure coming against you, where you are feeling the defense mechanism kicking in to protect you from getting squashed, from getting defeated, from getting pushed back. That is you fighting against. And I want you to think about, how can I take this situation where I am fighting against right now? How can I take it and turn it around to find something that I can fight for? I want you to fight for. Don't fight against. That'll do it for this episode of the Do Zone Solos. I wanted to keep it brief because I really wanted to make that point. Don't fight against. Fight for. I could keep going and keep finding 10 more minutes of content to share here, but that would be me fighting against the idea that I wanted to put out. Instead, I want to fight for you. I want to fight for you to digest this one simple, singular idea that you don't have to fight against anything. Turn it around and look for something that you can fight for. And if you're fighting for a better team, if you're fighting for a stronger business that performs better, if you really need help with accountability, getting yourself on track, and you want to crush your goals this year, let us help fight for you by going to unbreakableteams.com to learn more about how we might be able to help you on your entrepreneurial journey, take your business to the next level.